Khrushchev, often overlooked Khrushchev, very famous for taking his shoe off in a very important meeting because he was so worked up and passionate about what he was saying. His reaction was to take his shoe off. Maybe a bit like footballers taking their shirts off when they celebrate. I don't know. Anyway, that's not all he was known for. He was known for something called de-Stalinisation. It was supposed to be a break from what had happened before. What people seem to maybe overlook a little bit is that to be in the position to assume the leadership of the Soviet Union, Khrushchev had to serve under Stalin for many years to establish his reputation. He wouldn't have got where he was if he'd not done what Stalin wanted, because Stalin tended to kill people who didn't do what he wanted. I didn't mention that in the last one, but Stalin's purges are something you might want to look into. Anyway, Khrushchev definitely had blood on his hands, and some historians I've listened to recently seem to think that Khrushchev might have, in part, been resentful of what Stalin had made him do, and also a bit guilty. So he made this speech at one of the party conferences, which made people go, because he said Stalin had been wrong. Stalin's methods were wrong, they gave communism a bad name, and he was going to improve that, and he tried. He continued with the economic plans. In fact, he created a 7-year plan. He also, like all other Russian rulers, tried to deal with the problem in agriculture, this time with something called the Virgin Land Campaign, where, childish, sniggering, where he agreed to cultivate lands which had never before been planted. And Russia is so huge that there was a lot of that. It actually worked to begin with, but then poor farming methods, because the pressure to produce so much, they didn't really use the soil wisely, coupled with some bad weather, meant that the harvest ended up being so great. And this is one reason why Khrushchev was perhaps removed from office. Khrushchev also had to deal with the ongoing Cold War with the Americans, but during his time the Soviets were the first to send a man into outer space, which was quite impressive. However, he also had a bit of a humiliation in the Cuban Missile Crisis, which is a foreign policy thing. Going back to the economic plans, well, I told you in the other video that Stalin really emphasised this heavy industry at all costs. Well, Khrushchev was willing to take a bit of a backward step from that, like this would be a backward step, because he was willing to focus a little bit on lighter industries, consumer products, and so the ownership of things like televisions increased massively under Khrushchev, and Stalin wasn't really bothered about making people's lives better. He was more focused on trying to improve things like heavy industry. So there's a bit on Khrushchev. You've got something on all three leaders, and now I'm so dizzy I might just fall down.